Yo, what is up, guys? It's your boy Bernie here, along with PM and also Sean.
What's up? Welcome to the charge.
How's it going? First time appearance.
Exactly, PM. It's your first time appearance here. And what better way to start off PM's first appearance than talking about some Premier League predictions? Of course, last year, my team, Liverpool, won the Premier League Championship. And these guys are going to be talking about who they think are going to win this year's Premier League Championship. So why don't we start it off? But before we start it off, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also remember to hit that like button if you're new to the channel. Like button, smash. PM's telling you to smash it. Sean's telling you to smash it. I'm telling you to smash it. Remember, hitting that like button, also hitting that subscribe button tells YouTube that you want more podcasts like this one. So let's start off with a great podcast. Let's start off with the bottom of the table, going 1 through 20. Let's start off at number 20. You know what? The newcomer can go first. PM, who do you have at number 20 in your Premier League prediction?
Oh, man. You know, it's pretty tempting to just go straight for one of the promoted teams. I actually do like Leeds and Fulham, so I think I might look at West Brom as the team that I'm probably not counting on to stay up. I don't know too much of their squad. I have heard of Matthias Pereira. Other than that, there's just not a lot that I think they have going for them.
Sean, who do you got?
All right, I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to agree with PM. I'm going to go West Brom. I think they're the weakest team to be promoted. I think that Fulham and Leeds have a chance to make a splash. And I think, the other teams that are, near the bottom of the table but stayed in, Aston Villa, Brighton, Burnley, and Crystal Palace, I think they have a stronger shot at keeping in the Premier League. So I'm going to put in 20th place. I'm going to put West Brom.
I'm going to have to keep a clean sheet here with you guys. I think West Brom, one of the weaker teams. I know they got promoted, but I'm just not confident in their goal-scoring ability, and I think the goal difference is what's going to really kill them, as I don't know where they're going to get their goals from. But instead of talking about that, let's move on to number 19. Who do we have at number 19, everybody?
After kind of the initial bottom of West Brom, I feel like there's just kind of a group that you kind of look towards. The teams like, as you mentioned, Aston Villa, Brighton. Burnley had a pretty good season last year, primarily because they just mug people in the box every time and just make every game dirty and just chuck it up front and try and head the ball in. So that's a pretty effective strategy no matter what kind of, division you're in. There's Crystal Palace. Fulham is one that, you kind of are hoping for because they got the American and Anthony Robinson recently transferred in there. But, how much faith do you really have in Fulham after the one and done season a couple years back? And then moving further down, there's Newcastle, another American on that squad with DeAndre Edlin. Hope they stay up. And then Southampton. Southampton's not looking too great after losing one of their best players in Højbjerg over to Spurs. My squad, Arsenal, just bought Soares from them. They've only had a couple transfers in. That kind of group is what I'm kind of looking for, 12 to 19.
But if you had to pick one,
who you got?
You got to
pick
19.
One. We're going all the way straight through predictions.
Gotta be.
I think I might put Southampton.
Oh,
that's a steep drop. It's a steep drop. For me, I'm gonna go with Crystal Palace. Honestly, I think Zaha is one of the most overrated players in the Premier League. I feel like he doesn't actually get the results that he needs. Maybe it's the talent around him, but for me, he just doesn't perform against good teams. And I just don't see them being able to make a push big enough. I'm sure he'll get sold at the end of the season, but for me, I have 19th place. I'm going Crystal Palace.
all right. I'm going to have a little bit of a shocker here, and Sean's going to be very upset with this one. I got Aston Villa actually in 19th place, and that's just due to the fact that I think Grealish is going to get sold relatively soon. And, he obviously was a big reason as to why they didn't get relegated. It was a crazy last game of the season. The way that they celebrated, obviously, it felt like it was the championship or the Premier League champions. But I just think that Grealish is going to get sold. I'm not really sold on a lot of their players on the defensive side. I'm just going to go with Aston Villa being relegated in this one. Do you guys disagree with that?
I might agree with that. I kind of think that both Sean and you need to watch some highlights of both Grealish and Zaha. They're both class. Zaha is definitely kind of on a downtrend after he was linked for like an 80 mil move like a couple years ago. Now he's like available for 30, which is pretty crazy. But, you know, he's also like 27, 28. You know, he's kind of getting up there and kind of prime. So I don't know. I think Zaha's class. I remember one of the few Crystal Palace games I watched last year. He just smashed one in from about 35 yards out. Obviously, he's not doing that every game, but there's undeniable quality with that. And anytime you have a player like that, I think he's a chance to stay out.
All I have to say is free my boy Grealish. Free him. Aston Villa, let him go. They're not going to let him go, but let him go. He doesn't deserve this punishment.
I don't think he'll go. Maybe in January if, you know, Villa are really struggling, but then again, they might need to keep him just to try and survive. But I just have a hard time thinking that someone's going to pay 80+ mil for him in this kind of reduced market value.
All right. Let's move to 17.
I got 18, bro.
Oh, 18.
18. Why don't you start off since you decided to interrupt me? Go 18. What do you got?
Yeah, let's go. 18. I'm gonna go Aston Villa, unfortunately, but at the same time, I hope they get relegated because I think Jack Grealish, as I said, needs to be free. I think he's got to go to a new team. He could be a top performer on another team. He had the most offensive chances created and the most fouls drawn in the Premier League last year. So he's an elite player. He just needs the chance to shine with a good team, and I'm going to put them in the bottom because I don't think they did anything to surround him with any good players.
What about you, Bernie? What you think?
18 I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. We don't really have to talk about them too much, but I think I have Brighton here. Brighton, I think, you know, they're kind of just like one of those teams that are just like, they don't really have enough, I feel like, to really warrant themselves to stay in the Premier League. Obviously, just due to what happened with the pandemic, it's obviously the market is going to be reduced. There's not a lot of signings going on. And I just don't think that, even with the signings, I just think Brighton's going to be one of those teams that ends up falling out and going back to the championship. But and they sold a couple players too, so I'm not really convinced that Brighton can hold their spot, and they're going to fall down to 18.
Even with the former Liverpool guy on Brighton now, Adam Lallana.
Adam Lallana can only do so much. I think that he's a little bit past his prime. That's why he didn't play for us most often. Obviously, he's a Brendan Rodgers guy, but I just don't really see Brighton in any aspect really creating the goal opportunities to warrant them staying up. But let's move on to number 17. I'll go first. Even though I'm the moderator, I'll go first. 17, I'm going to have to put Fulham here. I think they're going to survive the relegation battle. I know a couple years back they spent all this money, 100 million, but I just don't think even with spending 100 million and getting back into the Premier League after going down, I still don't. Even though they're a couple years older, I don't really see Fulham as someone that could really contend for anything to even be in the top half of the table or even somewhere in the middle. I just think that they're going to just do enough to survive. PM, who do you have at 17?
Oh man, I don't think I'm gonna go with Fulham. I might be just a little bit higher on them than most. You know, I kind of am hoping this is where Burnley will be, so I'll throw them there. I don't have any love for how Burnley play football. It's really kind of a boring style, kind of, you know, grungy and fight and grind out results. It's just not really my preferred viewing. It is effective, but it is also very effective at getting draws. And when you look kind of at the table, teams that end up with a lot of draws are the ones that end up struggling because going for 3 points is much more of a prudent strategy rather than kind of trying to grind out results getting draws. So I'll put Burnley here. I'm not a huge fan of their style, but I think that they could, you know, they could fluctuate between this and 10. I just don't. You know, I never see them going past that.
Might surprise some people. I'm gonna go with Southampton. I know they have like a really good striker in Danny Ings, but I think that a lot of other teams behind them have improved, and I don't necessarily know if they have. And Southampton plays a lot of close games, And to me, they're probably one of the least talented teams to be, placed as high as they did in 11th. They placed 11th. And to me, there were teams behind them that were actually more talented that didn't. And now I think we actually had some good teams in Fulham and Leeds that came up that might be able to even surpass them. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to put Southampton.
All right, and let's move on to 16. Sean, why don't you lead us off? I know you just talked, but lead us off with number 16.
Number 16, I'm going to go Fulham. For me, Fulham's a really exciting team to come up, and they could surprise everyone like a Leicester did, but not obviously not winning a championship. But they've made moves that improve them coming up into the Premier League. And to me, they're one of those teams that I think a lot of teams last year that got moved up weren't that good. But I think when you look at Fulham and Leeds, they're teams that are actually talented. And so for me, I think 16th place is going to be Fulham. I'm really excited to see how they play. I think I'm going to be watching a lot of, the teams that people would consider in the bottom tier because I think they're going to surprise me.
I think this is kind of going to be where Villa lands. Kind of talking about Grealish earlier and how, they might need him to stay up. But I think Villa's going to have one of those seasons where they see that Grealish is an obviously phenomenal player, but he's also kind of the player that a team like Villa needs to, ultimately move on to get to a better place. And, after this year with all the kind of uncertainty with finances, a good run of form for England, I could kind of see Jack Grealish going for 80, 85 plus mil. It's sayonara for Grealish off to Man U or one of the big four.
Yeah, for sure. And for me at 16, I'm going to put Burnley. Like PM, they play a very boring style of football, but it's very effective. And, I think the coach of Burnley should look to make a move as soon as possible. I think that you can only take a squad so far, and I think Burnley's one of those squads that, for the most part, have been consistently, for a team that really doesn't have that much talent, stay in the middle. And I think that he needs to look at moving on before he's marked as the coach that you bring in just to stay up. That's just my opinion. Burnley at 16. 15, I'm going to go with the West Ham, the Hammers. I look at their squad. They're pretty exciting. I like some of the players they have. Antonio, obviously a great striker for them, did really well at scoring the goals. And really just kind of Issa Diop, I'm kind of a fan of. That might just be a FIFA career mode thing or a football manager thing. But I just think that they're kind of average as well. So I'm going to have West Ham at 15. PM, who do you have at 15?
I'm going to throw Fulham here. I really hope that Fulham have a good season. I'm really kind of hoping that they shock people kind of around how Sheffield has, kind of in this past year, just kind of bumping up into the top half of the table, even against all odds. As I watched them, I kind of was a little hesitant to kind of see how they do this year because they struggled to break down Brentford. And, I guess that's kind of the way that the championship teams play. They play very physical. They want to defend. Areola signing on loan from PSG at keeper is just fantastic business. He was over at Real Madrid this past year. I don't think he got too much time, but, going from Real to Fulham, there's got to be, some quality there. And then they also just announced a signing, I think in the past couple of days, Kenny Tite. He's a Netherlands international. He came from Lyon. Another quality signing. I hope they surprise, but at the same time, I'm just kind of hoping that they.
15, I'm going to go West Ham. I've never been a fan of West Ham. I feel like they lose a lot of games they should, and I just don't think they're going to be able to turn the corner. Personally, I like teams that are stronger defensively, like Burnley, that can, win 1-0 games, even if it's a shocker. West Ham, for me, is a team that kind of always disappoints. They took 16th last season. I don't see them improving very much, so I'm going to put them in 15th. Number 14, I'll put Burnley. They took 10th last year, but Burnley, for me, it's another team where I think they can hold out long enough and score goals that will, give them those big upsets. And in the Premier League, it's highly underrated to be a low-scoring team with good defense. And I think Burnley, just the way they're coached and the system they play, allows them to pull upsets when other teams think they can't. They beat good teams last year, and so I think that when it comes down to it, Honestly, I think Burnley will be able to pull off enough. They're not going to have as good a finish as they did the year before with 10th, just because a lot of good players have transferred into the Premier League this year. But I do see them, taking 15th. I don't see them getting relegated.
They undoubtedly have some quality kind of going forward. I think the trouble for West Ham is just all the goals they concede. I think that's kind of been a constant over, the years that I've watched them. They've always had, quality players, and, attacking wise, they are solid. I feel like, if you're trying to survive in the Premier League as a team that concedes a lot of chances, concedes a lot of goals, that's playing with fire. And, they're rocking David Moyes as manager. We all kind of know how David Moyes has turned out at bigger teams. There's also a pretty big rumor that Declan Rice might be on his way out. One of their best players, produced some incredible goals last year.
Yeah, I think at 14, I'm going to put Crystal Palace here. I'm probably higher on him than both of you. What I like about Crystal Palace is Zaha. I think like UPM, I think Sean kind of undervalues him a little bit. He's a great quality player, and I think it's just the talent around. I think it's just the talent around him, and it's just the coaching style. I mean, I think he's one of those players that needs to get out right away, and it depends on where he goes. Like if he leaves before the transfer window closes, then I think that Crystal Palace could potentially do worse. But as long as Zaha's there, they'll be fine. I mean, the thing with Crystal Palace is that they've always been in that kind of mid-tier position, right, from like 14 to 13.
Honestly, I'm surprised they haven't been relegated in the past couple of years. I'm always thinking that they're probably close to it every year.
I mean, they always have the manager that saves them every time from getting relegated, and Roy Hodgson just kind of is. I mean, obviously they're not gonna have him this year, but I mean, who knows? Like I said, I think Crystal Palace, although not the worst team in the world, but they're still not the best team, so I have them at 14. All right, guys, moving on to 13. I'm going to put Sheffield United here. I know that they finished really high last year. I believe they finished, what was it, 8th?
I think it ended up being 9th, but they were close. Yeah, they're close.
Yeah, I just think that they haven't really made any key signings, and I think they were probably the shocker team of the Premier League in terms of where they finished. A lot of us are rooting for them to finish above Man United. We're rooting for them to get into the Europa League, but they ultimately failed in that aspect. And I think that they're going to ultimately fail here again and kind of be one of those mid-table teams. So I'm going to have them in 13.
For me, I'm going to put Newcastle. I know they signed Callum Wilson and Ryan Fraser from Bournemouth, which is two really good signings. But, for me, Sheffield is a team that I really like the way they play together. I think that they got killed by the coronavirus break, and so that kind of ruined their momentum. I think if that didn't happen, they may have finished, within those top 8. So I'm going to put Newcastle. I don't really like their style of play, and even though they did add some good players, I still don't see them finishing, any higher.
I think I'm going to stick with Bernie, and I'm gonna throw Sheffield United around here as well. Great season last year. I will say that I think their best player left this year, which was Dean Henderson, backup keeper for Man U, which I didn't even know until they said it was the termination of his loan spell. But they did sign a new keeper, Aaron Ramsdale from Bournemouth, $18.5 million, I guess. But I think Dean Henderson was by far the best goalie, or at least one of the two. They got another interesting player out on loan from Chelsea, as Chelsea loans out 50 players every year. Ethan Ampadu, I believe his name is. He's a FIFA career mode, just gem.
Let's move on to number 12. We're almost getting to the top 10 here. But who's just going to miss out? Who's going to miss out on the top 10 PM?
They have a ton of turmoil off the field right now. They are currently kind of in an ownership struggle. I think his name's Mark or Mike Ashley. Their owner's been trying to sell them for, I think, a majority of the summer with coronavirus. It's been a nightmare. There was a proposal on the table, I believe, for a Saudi-backed regiment to purchase them. I know a lot of Newcastle fans on Twitter were going crazy with that. They were like, maybe Messi's on the table, maybe Kai Havertz. I think there's something to be said about, teams kind of in this area, because Ashley is an owner that does not really want to invest. Like you said, Callum Wilson, Ryan Fraser. Two names that I do like. I think Ryan Fraser is solid. I'm actually a really big fan of Callum Wilson, another fantasy guy I had. I know he had a pretty strong year up until the end, but then once again, Bournemouth kind of exploded at the end, so I'm not really going to blame him.
At 12, I'm gonna go Sheffield. I mean, they're definitely gonna take a step back, and that's just because so many other teams had like such big signings this offseason. They're a team that I like. I mean, if I was going to compare them to like an NBA team, I'd say they're like the Toronto Raptors. There's someone who plays, really well together. Doesn't have a superstar, but the connection can really, help them pull upsets and help them, sustain their growth in the league. But they're definitely not going to take ninth place just with the growth of the other teams and the signings. But I think they're going to take a little step back, but I have Sheffield United.
All right, and then me personally, I'm going to put Southampton here. I think I have them a lot higher than you guys. I kind of like the team. I know I'm probably going to ride the Ings train just because, he was one goal shy of getting the goal of the Golden Boot. But I just think their defense is very solid. I like Vestergaard. I like some of the people in the middle. Bertrand, another great player. I like this Southampton team. I know Southampton's usually one of those clubs that's like a farm system club where they build up a lot of young players and then eventually sell them to the top clubs, like my team Liverpool. I just think that Southampton, I like their style of play. I know it may not excite everybody, but I think they're going to surprise some people this year, and I think they're going to do well. And then I'll kind of move on to number 11 myself. I have a club that you guys talked about, and that is Newcastle. Like you talked about, PM, Newcastle dealing with ownership problems. We have a video out there. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. Me and Sean talk about the debate and the debacle between Newcastle fans and what's going on with the Premier League. But coming back to the stuff on the field, I love the signings that they had from Bournemouth with Fraser and Wilson. I think Wilson is very underrated, one of those players that gets goals no matter what. And Fraser, also another player that I thought that maybe a Man U would try and go and get just as someone to roll the dice on. But I'm going to have Newcastle at 11, even though they fired one of my favorite coaches. But I agree with him. They need to find an owner that really, cares about the badge and not really about
11. I think this is where I'm going to throw Leeds. Obviously, a lot of hype around Leeds. I don't know how much of that kind of stems from their Amazon documentary from last year. But a lot of people are, excited about their, long-awaited return back to the Prem. It's been, I don't know how many years. It's been at least a couple decades, I think. But some of the names that I know, Calvin Phillips, center defensive mid, recently got his first cap with England in this past international break. They did just sign another guy from Spain, Rodrigo, left-footed striker. Quick, decent strength to him. I've always loved using him on FIFA, so kind of excited for that.
So, yeah, for me, I'll probably go with Leeds as well. I want to put them higher. I really do. But that's just like the underdog in me. I want to root for the underdog. But jumping from the second league to 11th place is pretty good. And so I think they do have enough talent to pull it off. I was really debating, if I'd, put like the Wolves or some, another team who might take a step back. But I think I'm going to end up going with Leeds here. I just think that, they're good enough to continue to sustain success. And I don't think this will be their, only year in the Prem. I think they're going to keep getting better.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to go, not to cut you off and go to number 10, but I think Leeds is going to be number 10 for me. They're going to crack the top 10. I think they're going to be one of those stories like Sheffield was last year. I think they played so well together. The goal difference was unbelievable last year for them. I believe it was a plus 42 goal difference. I know it's the championship. I know we could talk about it, but it's probably one of the most competitive leagues out there. I know it doesn't get the recognition it deserves at times, but I like the addition of Rodrigo. He gets in positions every time to score. Whether he makes it or not, or converts it, I should say, is a different story. But I do like the addition of Rodrigo. I like the defenders that they have in there. I like Robin Koch. I think he's another great young defender. Sheffield United kind of shocked some people, and I think that Leeds is going to make some shocking moves here and get to number 10.
Yeah, I mean, for number 10 for me, I'm going to go with with the Wolves. They didn't really add much. They added Fabio Silva, an 18-year-old, so he's gonna have a lot of development to do. That was like the most money they ever paid for someone. It was like 35 million euros.
Scored like I think 2 goals in his entire senior career. Pretty crazy.
Exactly. So they're really banking on like some really fast development, or maybe they're just hoping that they can sustain with their talent with like Raul Jimenez, and just really hold on to like a place in the Premier League, which they probably will. They have enough talent to do that. But it feels like they're playing the long game versus going to win and trying to get in a Champion League spot, place in the Final Four there. So I'm gonna put the Wolves at 10.
I'm going to throw a shocker here. I'm going to throw Spurs at 10. Watching this documentary, it's kind of shown me a lot. Just kind of how Mourinho kind of works, and his arrogance also is just undeniable quirkiness and just overall just comedy that he brings with him. Hear me out. I think Spurs have a lot of great players, obviously. Heung-min Son, I think, is world class. I think he's an unbelievable player. Walks in the most teams. Harry Kane obviously gets his goals. Whether that's from the penalty or spot or not. That kind of kind of varies. But I just, I've seen Mourinho in these past 3, 4, 5 years and what he does to teams. And inevitably, I think Spurs are going to challenge for the title, or they're going to absolutely implode and Mourinho's getting fired midway through the year. That's kind of the way things work out with Mourinho. It's either title or complete failure. Even though he once said his greatest accomplishment was getting Man United second 1 year. Anyway, I just don't believe in Mourinho's style anymore. I think it's a little antiquated. Kind of plays like Burnley more so than any of the other top teams. He loves to sit on the back foot of the game, counter. That's not a bad way to play in a knockout type of tournament. Over the course of these 38 games in the Prem, I just don't know if that style's going to work, regardless of who's running it. I really kind of don't see a great year for them.
Move on to number 9 then. Who do you have at number 9 if the Spurs are at number 10?
I like Wolves as a squad. They don't have any European football this year, so that could ultimately help them, kind of focus their efforts over these 38 games. They're going to be a tough game for every single team. I think that's the way Wolves play. That's the way their squad is kind of built. They press, they are fast, and they ultimately give a hell of a game to whoever they really play against.
For me, I'm gonna go Tottenham. I don't like the way they play together. They just don't connect well. I mean, they have really good players in Kane and Son. They signed Doherty, but to me, they just really don't sync, and I think they need to do sort of a rebuild here. I know Son's going to be coming off an injury, and really, I think a lot of other teams like Arsenal and Everton made signings to put themselves ahead of them.
All right, well, I'm going to say that Leicester's overrated, and I have them at number 9 on my list. The problem with Leicester for me is that I think Brendan Rodgers, a great coach, but always seems to bottle job and choke when it matters most, and we kind of saw that last year. And I think it's gonna be the same result. I feel like what happened for Liverpool, right? We all remember the slip and what happened. It was frustrating, but it was still good that they got second place. But inevitably, Liverpool fell down the table, and I think that's what's going to happen for Leicester. And I think Jamie Vardy is going to have a party, and not the way that they want him to have it. They're probably going to have him. He's probably going to come back overweight a little bit just from all the partying he's done during quarantine partying. I just don't see him scoring that many goals again. I like some of the players that they have on the team. I like Yuri Tillemans, obviously another career mode guy that a lot of people like to sign. I like James Maddison. I thought he was a good pickup for them. But other than that, they lost Chilwell, which I think is a big one in my opinion.
They shouldn't have fired Claudio Ranieri in the beginning. They fired him 1 season after he won the championship. It was a huge mistake. And I'll live by that.
Pretty disrespectful as well.
As they say in 2020, it is what it is. And let's move on to number 8. Number 8, I'm going to have Wolves here that you guys talked about. I agree with you, Sean, and their new signing that they brought in, the 18-year-old. The weird thing is that, like you said, they should be competing right now to get into the top 5 and try and fight for that Europa spot. But the signing of the 18-year-old is a long game, and I don't know why they're playing for the long game when they have such great players right now. Wolves has signed everybody that's from Porto or from the Portuguese league.
Every Portuguese player ever. In talks to also buy Jesus Corona from Porto as well, and link up with Raul Jimenez, both Mexican internationals.
Yeah, the Mexican connection. And it's just like one of those things where I just don't know why, like you said, why they went for the younger player. But I do like the squad. Traore, a great player. I'm going to have them at number 8.
I'm going to put Leicester. I said I don't think they're going to take a huge step back, but, they did downgrade on their defense. They got a lot of money, so I think maybe a year from now they're going to make some pretty big signings that are going to make a splash and move them back into, top 6 category. But, yeah, losing Chilwell is a huge loss, but I think, obviously Jamie Vardy is one of the best strikers in the league, and I think he's going to, continue to help them stay, at least in that top 10. And so I'm going to put them 8. I think they still have a lot of potential here. Just not as good as, maybe like some of the big 6 teams, and as well as, another team that I'm going to get to in a sec. But
my squad here is going to be Everton. Always kind of liked Everton. I think they've definitely made the biggest kind of moves out of anyone not in the top 4. Maybe outside of Chelsea, honestly. They signed an entirely new midfield, which is pretty wild considering Everton don't generally splash cash like that. They bought Alon from Brazil and Napoli, 29 years old, kind of like signaling a move that they're kind of going to go for it in these next couple of years.
Yeah, and then moving on to number 7, I'm going to kind of piggyback off UPM. I'm going Everton at number 7. I know that they're kind of arch rivals of Liverpool. I mean, it's not really a rivalry, but that's a different story for a different day. But like you said, quick flex. But like you said, PM, I like this squad. I think the addition of James Rodriguez, Carlo Ancelotti as the manager, he seems to always kind of bring in James wherever he goes. It looks like, whether it's Bayern or whether it's Real Madrid.
Exactly.
But I'm going to have a prediction here that I think Keane is going to score 15 goals this season. I know that's a lot, but that's one of my biggest predictions. I think I like Moise Keane. I know he didn't really pan out this season, but I think he's going to, kind of bounce back for a second year, come back. I like their roster. Pickford, I'm not really a big fan of. But other than that, the rest of the squad, Andre Gomes, I'm a huge fan of. Alex Iwobi, another great player. Walcott, always signing a ting. I like this team, and everything about it. I think the biggest question to me is, like, who are they going to play with James in the midfield? That's what I'm going to be curious to see, whether, they go Sigurdsson, with Adele. There's just a lot of midfielders, and it's just going to be interesting to see what Carlo Ancelotti does in that midfield. But just like I piggybacked off UPM, I think they're going to get into European football at number 7.
Number 7 for me, this hurts to say. I'm going to put Arsenal. It's my favorite team, but I just don't think they've done enough so far to sign. Things could change if they sign James Partey. Obviously, they're about to re-sign Aubameyang, but right now it's not completed. They did sign Willian and Gabriel, which are 2 big signings. I think Willian, despite that he's 32 or 33, I think he's extremely fast. He's coming off one of his best seasons, and I think he's still a big threat. And I think he'll play really well where they could possibly shift Aubameyang into the middle and have Willian and Pepe on the outside. And they also got Ceballos back on loan from Madrid. But until they get Partey, I think if they do get Partey, it could boost them into the top 5 there. Just for me, I think they need, more of a presence in that center mid. I think Xhaka's a little too slow to be the offensive player that they need. Ceballos is box to box, but they really need another piece in there to make it all work. And so for me, I'm going to put Arsenal in 7th here.
I feel like I'm going to say Leicester. Leicester are a great team. Ever since their fairy tale run in 2015, it's been kind of a crazy up and down swing for Leicester, kind of like a roller coaster. Constant is Jamie Vardy, bagging 15 to 20 goals basically every season. Won the Golden Boot last year. They're going to be missing Chilwell, but they did sign Castagne, I think is how you say his name, wingback. He's Belgium, and I believe he came from Atalanta, another team that just made an incredible run in the Champions League. You know, he could step in for Chilwell. They said he can play either side. You know, they are built for success. Leicester is a team that I've kind of envied over these past couple of years because they seem to snipe up youth and just talented players, you know.
Now you got to move on to number 6. This is where it gets interesting.
Number 6. I want to say Chelsea. I want to say Chelsea's going to stop outside the top 4 because, you know, I ultimately kind of question their management. I don't, you know, love Frank Lampard. I rate him as a former player, but as a manager, I just don't know if I see it. You know, what happened to the Chelsea of last year where it's, you know, we're playing the kids. You know, Tammy Abraham, incredible start to the year. He was bagging goals left and right through the first 15 games. After the restart, you know, not so much. Went to Giroud, who, as an Arsenal fan, I know very well. Seen him miss a ton of chances. You know, he was productive for them, but, you know, I ultimately just don't quite see the tactical side of Chelsea. You know, I watched them in the FA Cup final versus Arsenal, and I saw how Aubameyang kind of exploited that left-hand side, and they just didn't do anything to address it. You know, as Azpilicueta, you know, got hurt in the game, but he just had so much trouble marking Aubameyang, and there just wasn't an answer for it for Chelsea. You know, they brought in so much great talent, and they're probably going to bring in more over these next, you know, few weeks. You know, they're going to sign a keeper. They're going to sign, you know, possibly Declan Rice. You know, they signed the best, you know, German young player in the world in Kai Havertz. Just so much of talent up and down. They got Werner, Pulisic, you know, they still have Conte in the midfield with Kovacic. But Willian was their player of the year last year. I didn't watch Chelsea too closely, but I do know that Willian ultimately puts in a good shift there. And, you know, it's going to hurt to lose players like that and, you know, kind of start all of these new, fresh faces. I just don't trust that Frank Lampard's going to get them firing. And that's kind of why I have him here.
You convinced me. And so
let's go.
I'm actually going to move Chelsea. This is going to be, you know, a bold call here, but I'm going to move Chelsea actually back into 7th. And I'm going to put, because I really hate Frank Lampard. You just reignited my hate for him. He just abuses Pulisic. He wants to pretend that he developed him. Like, Pulisic's an amazing player. And as you were saying in that FA Cup, once Pulisic went out, it was an entire new game. He literally was the entire inspiration for their offense, and their defense is so bad. I don't think they did do enough to fix their defense, really. So I'm actually going to move Chelsea back into 7th, and I'm going to put Everton in 6th. I really like the signing of James Rodriguez. I think he's going to have, you know, re-inspiration in his career here. I think he's going to have a revival of, you know, the player that he was outside of Real Madrid. And I really like Allen. I think Allen is a really dynamic player in the mid who can play, you know, both defense and offense. And so for me, I think Everton's going to make some really big steps here, and I'm going to end up moving them up there.
I'm actually going to have at number 6. I'm going to have Penn United, a.k.a. Man United, at number 6. Obviously, they have some boneheaded players on their team, Harry Maguire being one of them, also Greenwood as well, getting caught having girls in his room during an English international game, Harry Maguire getting arrested in Greece. And I'm not really a big fan of the manager. I'm not going to say his name because I'm going to butcher it. I already know it. But what I'm not a fan of really is that they've kind of wasted away Pogba's years as probably being a top player in the Prem. I think that he probably could have been a lot better off staying at Juventus. That's something that I really hate. Obviously, thank God Jesse Lingard's not going to be there anymore. Something about this Man United team, other than Bruno Fernandes, which they got, you know, on a bless. And I think they struggle really for me is like to get the goals that they need, other than by getting it by penalty. And I think that they're looking to sign a guy like Sancho, but Sancho doesn't want to come. It looks like they're going to have to go to some of their other, you know, third or fourth options. and they're going to be in this battle again with Man City, with Chelsea in terms of trying to sign players, even though right now is not the best time to sign players. And I just think that their defense to me is a little suspect at best, and it depends on how many games Maguire is suspended for. I don't know how the Prem does with those kind of antics. Situation where Man United is going to be in sixth, and they're going to miss out on that Champions League football.
I think Harry Maguire deserves to do some prison time there. I think he assaulted a police officer and tried to bribe them, resisted arrest, and I think that's going to add up to some serious time. England should not get him extradited. I don't think that would be fair. I think he has to, go through the court process. And I think Manchester United, although they, made a lot of good additions on offense, they still have De Gea in goal, unless they start Dean Henderson. But, Donny van de Beek's a great player. But for me, offense was never the issue for Man United. It wasn't even close to the issue. And so I think that they really didn't make any moves that necessarily make sense. I think Harry Maguire is going to serve some prison time. He bribed a cop. He assaulted a cop. He resisted arrest. He's a POS. And I honestly do believe that they didn't do enough to build their defense. I mean, if Harry Maguire does do some time, which he should, they really only added Donny van de Beek and, maybe they'll add Sancho, but offense was never their problem. They were goal-scoring machines because they always get penalties. But, outside of that, they really don't have good defenders, and De Gea is going to have to compete with Dean Henderson, who's a pretty good goalie. But I bet you, just out of respect, they start De Gea and they give up a bunch of goals. He'll probably be benched before the end of the season. But I see them taking fifth place. They could even fall further than that. I don't think they did enough to address their weaknesses.
Talking more about Man U there, it's quite similar to what you said. I'm going to avoid all legal issues. I'm not going to talk about that at all.
Prison.
But I will say that their defending is very questionable. It's like you said, attacking-wise, they're incredible. They have so much talent attacking-wise. Rashford, Martial, possibly Sancho, along with Bruno, Pogba, Donny van de Beek. Those are incredible attacking talents. But, who are they going to start? Are they going to start a midfield three of Pogba, Donny van de Beek, and Bruno?
Yeah, and I think before we talk about our top four, the last team that I have to talk about that won't be making that list is going to be, for me, Arsenal. I think Arsenal is going to miss out. And I know it's going to upset PM and our Arsenal fluid friend, Sean up there. The only reason why I say that is because I think it's still a project for Mikel Arteta. I think there's still some couple things he needs to add. There's some players there that I'm a little bit questionable about. Guendouzi, is he in? Is he out? What's going on with his situation? I'm not a huge fan of Willian. I think that they could have used that money elsewhere. I think that they need to somehow lock in Ceballos to a long-term contract instead of loaning him out. Because next year he could say, you know what, I'm going to Real Madrid. I'm going to just stay. And I think, Lacazette's not getting any younger, and I think that Aubameyang is not getting any younger. And I think that
they're both around that age too. So you have a point.
And I think that if they need to start making pushes to get some great players. But I like the idea of what Mikel Arteta is doing with, injecting some of the young players. I like Saka in there. Pepe has finally stepped up to the plate. And I think that just like Pepe, I think the two defenders they brought in, especially Gabriel coming from Ligue 1, I think he's going to be in the same situation where I think it's going to take him a little bit to get accustomed to the league, and then he'll be really good. I think that Arsenal, and, I'm not a huge fan of David Luiz, the clown. I knew he looked like Sideshow Bob. And I think that a lot of Arsenal fans, I'm not talking about UPM or Sean, but a lot of Arsenal fans are kind of demanding that, they have like one good season, a somewhat good season, right? Not in terms of the Premier League table, but in terms of winning the trophies. And their expectations is to win the championship or to win the Premier League. And I just don't think that's realistic at this point. I do think that they have some solid players. Saliba, a great player. I do like Arsenal as a squad. I like their young players, but I think that they need to work on the Xhaka midfield position. I think that that's, like Sean said, a glaring issue in their midfield. But other than that, I do like Arsenal. I just think they're going to miss out, and I think next year is when we're going to see Arsenal really contend and go into that top four. But I just think that right now, just like how I kind of described the Boston Celtics a couple of years back, they're in that kind of oven-baked process where it's going to take a little bit of time before they're finally ready to go.
I hope this is true. I hope Arsenal can squeak out fourth. It's kind of been our bread and butter the past 5 seasons, squeaking out fourth, sneaking into Champions League. But ultimately, these, I think, past 2 or 3 seasons, it hasn't happened. There's a lot of reasons for that, primarily our defense. And for once in, the past 4 years, we have finally spent some money and got some great prospects there. Saliba is a insanely talented prospect. When he signed for us last year and we loaned him back out, I was pretty sad because we needed him this last year. Starting David Luiz and Mustafi is a recipe for something to go wrong. We've seen that. Even when Arteta has gone in here, it's ultimately hard to rely on our current center backs. So, bringing in Saliba, someone who has been compared to some great defenders, he's a big, tall, 6'2", good at intercepting the ball, apparently pretty cautious, but, makes good tackles when he needs to. I think someone like that slots straight into our first team. I'd be surprised if he doesn't start this weekend. And then Gabriel, a transfer saga that lasted way too long. And ultimately, I am so excited for those two and where Arsenal can go from there. It's incredible finally having 2 prospects at center back that can ultimately, lead our back line for the next 5 to 10 years. We haven't had center backs like that since, Koscielny, who was ultimately a great, great servant of the club. Aubameyang FC. Aubameyang carries our squad. He scored like 20 some odd goals last year, most of them really important goals. I'm kind of disappointed in Bertie putting Arsenal outside of Champions League because we did pull out 2 results from Liverpool. In recent memory, we pulled out the Community Shield, which, glorified friendly, but, we did win. And we also got the one in the FA Cup, which I don't think a lot of people expected. I think that kind of showed when we won the FA Cup that Arsenal have a huge talent at manager in Mikel Arteta. I think a lot of players have bought in. Everyone else that hasn't bought in is seemingly on the way out. Like you said, Guendouzi, one of the guys that he hasn't quite integrated back into the squad. But there are moves to be made. I really, really hope by the time the transfer window closes that we ultimately get 2 center mids in. Partey and Aouar are only concrete links we've had to a transfer in like weeks. And I wake up every day and the first thing I do is check the transfer news. So I am looking for any transfer news. There is none. It's Partey and Aouar and there's nothing else. I think that we ultimately will get one of them. I really hope we get Aouar because he kind of seems to be the creative presence that we've been lacking. Ozil seems to be a player that, has his uses maybe against lower league competition, but he's not going to come up against the top 6 games. Partey is a defensive mid that we haven't quite had in a long time. If we get those 2 in, I think it's seriously going to be a great battle for the top 3 or 4. But, if we don't, then I could see us missing European football. But I guess we'll see. Oh, sorry. And then 3 through 1. It's going to be United, City, Liverpool.
But number 4 for me, this is a team that I realized I forgot to talk about deep back in the roster, but I'm going to put them at number 4, Brighton. They got the glue. They got the glue from Liverpool with Lallana. They took a right winger from Fulham, and they took a center back from Ajax. They're in position to shock the world, take top 4, and I'm going to put Brighton there. Number 3, I'm going to put Liverpool. Liverpool is going to take a step back. They've been playing like trash. I'm sorry. Every single friendly they've had, they've looked terrible, giving up lots of horrible goals. Their defense does not look the same. Their offense does not look the same. Feels like they aren't working together. Klopp is the best coach in the world, so maybe he can pull it back together. But I'm going to put Liverpool in third. Second place, I'm going to put Arsenal. I think Arsenal's going to close a deal with Partey, possibly with a war. But even if they don't, I love the way they've been playing in recent games. I feel like they have really good chemistry. Even if their players aren't the most talented, I do think they have enough to, obviously make Champions League here. And I'm really impressed with just the signings they made and also keeping Ceballos, making sure he didn't, get kept by Madrid. And I'm hoping that they give us a look where Willian and Pepe can start on the sides, and then we can put Aubameyang back into the middle. I'm hoping for a sale of Lacazette. I do think even if they don't sell him, he'll be a valuable kind of super sub off the bench that can score some clutch goals. He didn't have the best season last year, but he's still a dynamic player. And so I think Arsenal, the way they're coached, I think Arteta's a brilliant coach. I think, like, if you compare him to the other first-year coaches with Lampard, I think Lampard is, Lampard thinks he's smarter than he is, and I think Arteta is kind of a player's coach. They all like him. They want to play for him, and I think he inspires them.
He was just named
first place,
their first manager, too.
Yeah.
They took away his head coach title and gave him the job as manager, something they haven't done since Arsene. That's really exciting. I also forgot to mention all of the youth players that Arsenal have, too.
But anyway. I mean, my ultimate dream here is for Arsenal to sign my boy right here over my shoulder, Jack Grealish. He's an incredible player. Put him in center mid. He incredible for Xhaka's spot. He's an attacker. He wants to play center mid. But, first place here, I'm going to put Man City. I think they have too much talent, too much money. I think last year they played a little inconsistently. I think Sterling could clean it up. But ultimately, Kevin De Bruyne, Jesus is still a star. And he's only 23 years old, and it feels like he's been in the Premier League for like a decade. They're going to have Aguero probably coming back mid-season from injury, and he's still extremely good. Their defense will definitely play better. They had a couple like fluky goals where they, mispassed the ball. I remember against Chelsea, Pulisic scored on one of those where they just gave it up and he just drilled right by him. But I think Man City has such high expectations, and I think this year they're really going to pull it together. I'd love for them not to win, but I do like parity in the league. So, anyone outside of Liverpool, Man City winning would be great for me, but I think Man City has all the talent to, pull this off.
I think if you're not picking Man City or Liverpool as your champion, I think you're you're a little hopeful, because those two teams have just been so far and away the best two teams in the Prem.
It's going to be a little controversial. I know this is going to upset you guys after you've had your little love fest for Arsenal. I'm going to go with number 4 being Tottenham, a Jose Mourinho team. I know we like to make fun of him. I know we like to see his antics on the field, but he just somehow finds a way to get his teams into the top 4 no matter what. When he's in a full season, Jose Mourinho, I know that they had I know you watched the Arsenal or the Spurs docuseries on Amazon Prime. No shout out for Amazon there. But I think that Jose, after a full season, will definitely be a player that I could see, or sorry, not a player, but a manager that I could see really getting this team together. And like you said, playing like a Burnley 2.0, but like a Burnley on steroids, where they can just,
for sure,
on the counterattack. And then moving on from that, at number 3, I'm going to actually have a surprise here. I'm going to have at number 3, Man City. I think the reason why I have them at number 3 is because I think the pressure for Man City is not necessarily the Premier League. It's the Champions League. The Champions League is the one thing that Man City hasn't, or that Pep hasn't accomplished yet at Man City. And obviously having 2 and 3 failings in a row is going to create a lot of pressure for these players to not only win the Premier League, but also win the Champions League, which is going to be the number 1 trophy that they're going for this season. And I just think that they don't have the players, I feel like, that can really muster up getting a Champions League. And I think that they're going to throw away some games in the Premier League, which is going to cost them to miss top 2, in my opinion. And I think that Raheem Sterling needs to do a better job at finishing. That's one thing Sean brought up as a great point. He needs to clean it up a little bit more. There's times where he has an open sitter and he just completely misses it.
I don't think I can't even think about any time that Sterling has missed a sitter. That's weird.
And I think that Ake, I'm not really a big fan of that. I think he's a good player, but I just don't think it's, he's a Chelsea reject. And I just don't really see him really providing anything for Man City, and that's why I have them at
Hey,
3.
you know who else was a Chelsea reject? Kevin De Bruyne.
KDB
Kevin De Bruyne,
and
player of the year.
and
Mohamed.
Mohamed Salah.
Yep.
There's no shortage of those. They send like 60 people on loan every year, so you know.
Exactly.
Batshuayi has been on loan for like 7 straight years or something crazy like that. So there's a lot of Chelsea rejects.
Future Pulisic is going to be a Chelsea
All right,
reject.
what
He's
you
gonna
got?
go to
What you got
Arsenal.
at number 1 and 2?
At number 2, this is gonna really upset Sean. I have Chelsea at number 2. I know that we kind of make fun of Frank Lampard as someone that smells his own farts because he thinks he's the
He
S
wafts
word,
them.
right? He wafts them. I don't know, but I do like the signings that they made. I think, like you said, PM, you make up a great point that you can't just bring in some players and hopefully it works out. But I think this is going to be the make it or break it season for Frank Lampard in terms of, is he the manager that Chelsea signed him for? Is he going to be the person that, years ago they brought in a guy like Jose Mourinho that made it work? And I think this is going to be his biggest test. And I do think that he's going to pass it barely just because he's going to get in second place. But really with a roster like Chelsea has, they really should be competing for for the number 1 spot. But I think that Frank Lampard is going to fall a little bit in that aspect. Like you said, I think he smells this far too much and thinks that he invented the game of football out here. And I think that he's really going to cost his team, especially because, Pulisic was a huge factor into why Chelsea was playing so well. I know that their defense in the midfield is really good as well. But I'm just not a big fan of Giroud. I know that the Deluxe Deluxe is someone that, Arsenal fans have been very disappointed in.
Shout out Nick Giroud.
Exactly. And I think the biggest key factor for the Chelsea team is really going to be N'Golo Kante. I think if N'Golo Kante can stay healthy, then I think this team is going to be good. And I do see this team really being successful. And that's why I have them at number 2. But if he's not in there, I'd really see them getting, sliced and diced. I know they brought in Thiago Silva. Not sure where they're getting all this money from. It seems like they haven't really sold anybody.
The ghost of Thiago Silva. The ghost. He's like 37.
It was that transfer ban. Helped him out.
And I feel like they're going to get back on that transfer ban. I think I think the owner really just says, you know what, we're going to break the rules and we'll just take a 2-year transfer ban every time. Hopefully the Premier League looks into that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really a big fan of that. And then I think number 1, Liverpool. I know a lot of people, this is going to be a biased pick, obviously. But what I like about Liverpool is the fact that I think a lot of people are doubting us again to kind of get to the number 1 spot. A lot of people have Man City as their first place team, aka Sean. And I like this team a lot. I think the young players is who Klopp is going for, and I think that's how Klopp injects his team with not really necessarily some signings other than like guys like Šmikas, the left back who's going to hopefully
Olympiacos.
Who's going to push Andy Robertson to actually kind of step up. But I do like a fact that Oxlade-Chamberlain might get a little bit more of a start. We might sell Grujic. I do like this team. I think that Mohamed Salah and Mane need to kind of figure out their issues. I think there is a little bit of tension there that kind of stemmed from not last year, but the year before, that is still kind of carrying over. Bobby, he needs to work on finishing goals. But other than that, I do like this Liverpool team. I think they're going to barely win just because, like you said, this is a completely different ball game. More players have been injected into the Premier League, and I think this is going to be probably one of the toughest seasons and probably one of the most fun seasons that we're going to have in a while, because just like the bottom 15 through 20, I think 1 through 4 or 1 through 7 can be interchangeable. And that's why I think this season is going to be a lot of fun. But do you guys have any last words before we sign off here?
I do. I do. Hey,
yeah, for sure.
I have a word too. Free my boy Grealish. Send him to Arsenal. And free Pulisic. Send him to Arsenal.
Send every good player to Arsenal. That is Sean's message for all you Prem owners watching. I'm going to give quick predictions of top Golden Boot, top assist, and player of the year. I have been a huge huge supporter of Trent Alexander-Arnold just because he's an incredible talent. You know, he's like 23 and like possibly one of the best players in the world. His free kicks are unbelievable. Defending is like, you know, solid, but not the best in the world. But I honestly think that he could, you know, push for 15 plus assists and be player of the year at right back, which would be insane. But I honestly think he's talented enough to do it. And I think he can get his goals up there if he's getting free kicks. If Liverpool have a great season, I think Alexander-Arnold's definitely got to be one of the reasons why. As for Golden Boot, I'm going to take Aubameyang. He's usually a pretty safe bet. He's been 1 or 2 these past 2 years. I think he's going to get better service this year as soon as Houssam Aouar signs for Arsenal, you know, in a couple weeks. But yeah, I think that's ultimately how it shakes up. Liverpool, you know, run away with the league. Alexander-Arnold has a great season, and Aubameyang takes Golden Boot.
Golden Boot, Bruno Fernandes.
Just because of all the pens he takes?
How many pens?
Yep.
22.
Probably at least 15.
22 pens and 3 goals for the Golden Boot winner. But yeah, I mean, that's going to do it here, guys, on the Charge. Of course, we not only talk about basketball, but we also talk about some Premier League soccer like we did today. And if you guys like this type of content, let us know in the comment section down below who your guys' top 4 is going to be. Do you guys have Liverpool or Man City in there? Or do you have a surprise team that can make the top 4? We'd love to hear your comments and opinions.
Brighton.
Or Brighton.
Like Brighton.
I'm
I think
probably
they're a relegation candidate for me and Brighton.
Yeah.
Top 4.
I'm definitely going to have that to be the clickbait title of this video, Brighton top 4, question mark. But nevertheless, like we said, guys, let us know in the comment section down below. And also, guys, remember to hit that subscribe button. You know, we're almost there to 1,000 subscribers. PM is changing.
Yeah, I'm sure it's off.
PM, we see Thierry Henry. I know the green screen of the fan is kind of taken away. PM is taking his shirt off. I might have to bleep this out. You know, it's not suitable for the young children out there. But nevertheless, guys, this is going to do it here for the Charge. We're seeing into PM's room right now.
Make your bed.
Make your bed. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it here on the Charge. Keeping the latest soccer news and rumors and also soccer opinions and other sports as well. But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. That's Sean above me. That's PM down below. Leave a like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next Premier League video. Peace.
And subscribe to my OnlyFans.